Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you had a wonderful weekend and a brilliant Monday as well. Today, I shall have for you potentially my most interesting transfer plans yet, and arguably my most important one yet as well. I have 5 potential routes to show you, and they all include the question whether or not I should or shouldn't be selling Phil Foden after the brilliant performances and brilliant returns he's been delivering for me over the past 2 weeks. I shall also be showcasing match analysis and specific player insights, which are getting really important given the delicate nature of the game at the moment and all the huge opportunities coming up. So it's set to be a really interesting one, and transfer plans will probably be slightly longer than usual, which I think you will enjoy given how many of you watched that section. In addition, I am very grateful for the fact that you have responded kindly to my request for dropping a like on the video. So if we can get this one to 350, that would be absolutely great. And if we could start to push for 7,000 subscribers and you could do as much on that front as well, I would be greatly appreciative. But without anything else needing to be said, let's hop into the video. As is sometimes the case, I shall start with a quick game week analysis. Now, Sunday 4 p.m., I'm on a walk and I'm like, okay, let's go and check the size of the green arrow. The size of the red arrow after those 2 o'clock games. And I go and check it, and I'm surprised at how big it actually is. 21 points. I did have faith in the City boys to deliver, not so much in the Chelsea boys, and I guess my faith was proportionately rewarded given the huge amount of points the Manchester City boys got me and the lack of points that the Chelsea boys got me. But it resulted in a green arrow, which was 4 points above the safety score, and a move up to 39k from 47k. I would have been at about 36, 37, which would have taken me to my highest rank of the season had Sanchez not got that yellow card, but we'll come on to that in a little bit. Considering I've got 4 free transfers in the bank, it is a very healthy position to be in, considering the huge amount of opportunities that are coming up. And it was also a very different game week. Usually, or recently, been my attackers who have come up trumps for me, but this time I get 3 returns from defenders, excluding bonus, and only one of my attackers returns, albeit it is a huge haul, I guess, to cover some of the blanks. But overall, a very solid game week. Slightly awkward, considering I didn't own Wood, Bruno, and Trent, who are all somewhat template in their own right, and they all haul/return. But to get a green in this week, considering the performance of my attacking differentials and differentials just in general, aside from Foden, obviously, I would say it's a win considering the I was in. Moving on to Mr. Robert Sanchez, we can choose to focus on the positive in that he scored double what Sells did this week. Obviously, that's it's not a lie because it's true, but it certainly paints the wrong picture when it's only 1 more point than Sells. It should have been triple what Sells got. And some of you may have seen that tweet that the save point really felt like a haul, only for him to go and get booked in the 94th to 95th minute. That's his 5th yellow card of the season, and I think it's the 3rd or 4th since I owned him. And he's done that a couple times now, at least. A little bit frustrating, but is what it is. Going forward, I know my initial route when it came to the moves in 23 looked at selling him. I'm far less likely to do that because originally I was going to hold on to Jackson, but I've had enough and he's going. Him and Guardiola 99%, with Jackson 100% is leaving the team. Even though West Ham at home and City away before was actually quite decent for him, actually potentially very good, I'm still selling him. I've had enough. And I just think it's so unrealistic for me to get a haul when he's in this type of form. So he's definitely going. And he's probably cost me more points than anyone else has this season, given the opportunity cost of not owning Cunha, Wood, or Mateta for a single game week this season when I wanted all of them, especially Mateta in recent weeks. So he'll be going. But moving back to Sanchez, he probably won't be. The fixture run's okay up till about 28, 29, and then you wildcard after that probably. So it's okay. 27, 28 is good. I wonder if he could be rotated in 27, which massively takes away from his appeal. But at that point, hopefully I should have some transfer stored again, and I can relinquish him there. Just a quick discussion on his performance in the game. When he was called into action to make the 3 saves, which got him the bonus point, he was there every time, and they were all good saves, right? But obviously, the error that he certainly has in him, he makes, and Wolves profit off it. To be fair to him, he's been very good in recent times, so I'd rather Chelsea fans didn't go and criticize him so heavily because I don't think it's necessarily warranted when other players have made mistakes in recent times, and he's honestly bailed us out and won us points, let alone just had good performances. So, it happens, it's okay, and we move on. I'm hoping that this is just a little blip and he goes back to his good form. And with the Conference League starting, Jorgensen just basically gets all his game time there, can play a bit in the FA Cup as well, hopefully we proceed. And the potential rotation down the line is essentially offset by the fact that Jorgensen's got enough minutes elsewhere and Sanchez gets back to form. Moving on to the defense, a story which hasn't been told so often recently is that they've done very well, but they did, and they averaged 6 points per game each, and that is absolutely wonderful in a week like this. Lewis Hall obviously loses his clean sheet super early. I actually turned the game on about 20 seconds after Bournemouth scored, so I was like, okay, that's gone. But then Anthony Gordon takes a corner, doesn't take it very well. Lewis Hall goes over to take it from the right-hand side, and Bruno Guimaraes heads home. Kepa maybe should have saved it, but he doesn't. And you get the Lewis Hall, not Hall, but he gets a return. And honestly, it felt like a haul this game week. Returns were really hard to come by across the pitch. Robinson keeps a clean sheet away at Leicester, and he again gets more than 6 this time by accumulating 2 bonus points. He's been absolutely sensational and so consistent in returns, even though he's not hauling big. So delighted to have him. Done well for me since he's come back into the side. Hasn't really hurt me too much when I benched him, apart from last week, and he did well for me. Start with him in game week 1. So certainly one of my more favorite assets of this season. And then Guardiola, they start a little bit shaky. Ipswich have a few opportunities, but then when they get that first goal, they kind of click into gear even more than they already had, and they really control the game, and Ipswich didn't have much. He really didn't have any opportunities for attacking returns, and we're going to come on to that within the match analysis, why that is. But to get a 6-pointer away from Ipswich, who have got a lot of attacking talent, specifically in Amari Hutchinson and Liam Delap, and given how City have been defending recently, snapped your hand off for it. So delighted there. There will, of course, be a change to this defense because I really don't see how I can continue to go without Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think I've done well to go without him for now, but now's the time to bring him in. One thing, though, and honestly, it was probably the highlight of the game until Sunday when Villa scored for me personally, because just to get that Gabriel decision right, not in terms of just the decision-making process, which I really did think Villa was going to score and get a result, but also just for the other 3 to go and outscore him was quite wonderful. And those decisions I enjoy in particular, hard ones, and they go your way. So that was all good. And there's a potential for me to sell him down the line, if not talk about in transfer plans. But overall, the defensive unit, given the transfers in the bank, looks quite solid. It was quite a decent shout to give the vice captaincy to Phil Foden, and he certainly rewarded the increase in responsibility. Now, I actually didn't change it on the official FPL site because I just forgot. I was probably thinking about it when I was doing my team selection and then didn't go and change it. But nonetheless, I did touch on it very briefly in team selection that this was a conscious decision. And yeah, he pops up with a 19-pointer. We'll talk about him during the match analysis, but this hybrid role that he played, this false right-wing role that he played in the positions that allowed him to take up. And it's not just that the sharpness of actions, the responsibility he's taking on the pitch. There are so many good things, and it's why it's difficult for me to sell him at the moment. But yeah, huge haul. Pep could have kept him on for a little bit longer to get the hat-trick. Alternatively, De Bruyne could have played him one pass or a shot instead, and that could have been the hat-trick, but never really complained with 19 points, can you? Palmer somehow still loses to Mohamed Salah, even though West Ham Wolves I thought were quite poor, albeit Liverpool did have a lot of chances and Salah did come fairly close to returning, but the Egyptian King wins yet again, even with a blank. And I think he did that for the 2nd or 3rd time this season. Not too much to say there. We'll talk about it in match analysis, but in general, you're not selling Salah or Palmer, are you? So not too much to speak about there. I saw some people be open-minded about the theory of benching Palmer away to City. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, and we can talk about that later. Well, Gordon didn't have the best of games, but did have 2 shots cleared off the line at times, so maybe somewhat well. One Howson blocked really well, and the other was cleared off the line late in the game. On another day, he gets returned, but I actually thought 2 points was fair enough for his performance and Newcastle's performance as a whole. One thing I was close to doing was starting Morgan Rogers this week, and it wouldn't really have mattered with 1-pointer. I was actually thinking during the game, he was getting a bit mouthy to the ref, and then in the end, he just snaps again at the ref at the end and gets a yellow card. And I was like, oh, I just lost the point if Palmer is not to play, but it wasn't the case. And to be honest, matter in the end. So yeah, like I said, not many people returned this week, but thank God for Phil Foden. Moving on to the forwards, Nicholas Jackson is gone. I've had enough. And you know what? I don't mind if someone's continuously blanking and they look really good. That's okay. Sometimes you just don't get the luck of the draw. But he's just not looking that good. He's not looking that threatening. It's also the confidence aspect of things. It doesn't really look like it's there, especially compared to earlier in the season. And as such, he's going to go. He scored an offside goal and it was very well taken. It was good movement. So at least move into that channel and make the run. But the timing of it wasn't so good. Isak didn't have a sniff, had less than Jackson probably had in the game against Wolves. But, his run comes to an end. But with Southampton away, I'm sure he will be back and he will be going absolutely nowhere for that fixture. João Pedro, probably not his most threatening game ever, but could have got a lucky assist before Welbeck missed, or he didn't really miss. Ball came off Onana and just hit him and just went over the bar, but could have got a lucky assist there. Apart from that, obviously had the disallowed goal, which was, I thought, expertly well taken. Commentator slightly undersold how good of a finish and just a bit of play it was, but obviously there was a foul on Diogo Dalot in the build-up. Still quite happy with him, but he is also on the chop, as quite a few are. So let's get on to the match analysis, and then we can talk about transfer plans. But overall, quite happy with the game. Not only do we now have two managers who reside in the top 50 in the world, not top 50K, but top 50 in the world in our community, but we also have so many success stories. We have someone, for example, who was at 300K, joined about a month ago, and now finds himself loitering well inside the top 100K. And we have other success stories like that. So if you would like to potentially improve your FPL rank, we can, of course, not guarantee anything. Get yourself access to the exclusive WhatsApp community group where there is football analysis from myself and discussions of all flavors, specifically relating to FPL, or even the 1-hour Q&A calls in the Diamond membership. By all means, please do access it via the link below. Try it for 1 month, and if you don't like it, by all means, quit. Everyone so far has been enjoying it, as to my awareness. Not a single person has kind of a little testimonial for yourself. So yeah, maybe try it for 1 month, and if you don't like it, by all means, cancel. Minimum downside, maximum upside. Thought it was only right to start here. About 8 minutes into the game, City had the ball in the left half space, and Ipswich were pinned in their 5-3-2. And I had a feeling that this was a little bit different for City. It felt good. You could see that there was this sense of control, and I really like Pep's team selection beforehand, which we'll also come on to. So firstly, De Bruyne is playing in that left side 8 as opposed to the right side. And I think what we've seen there is a few things. One, Guardiola doesn't get as advanced because I think De Bruyne does well at just operating that channel as a whole, but also just dropping deeper to receive as well. And the threat that the left winger poses at times, given the relationship De Bruyne has and what he can produce for them, I don't think it requires Guardiola to advance as much. And as such, they're more transition-proof City as a team. And I think that's a big plus for them, right? Yes, Guardiola is absolutely brilliant in the final third. And directly, I guess that's helping them. But indirectly, I actually think having De Bruyne on this left side has been far better for City. The game that comes to mind is the game against West Ham. And I specifically remember the relationship that Grealish and De Bruyne had in that game. Very fluid. De Bruyne would happily drop deeper, allowing Grealish to come inside a little bit more and just do his thing. Doku again had a very good game. And Guardiola didn't really make those advancements because he was very much protecting and almost in possession, acting like a wall. So when the ball would go back there, he could just ping it back into Doku, De Bruyne, and they could go again. So I really like that from Pep and adopting what they did in Game Week 3 earlier in the season. I thought Gundogan and Kovacic worked really well as a pair, whether it came to beating the press or in build-up, but also what Gundogan's indirect benefits were on the side. He didn't really occupy the number 8-like zones that you would associate with a traditional number 8, especially someone like Gundogan, right? Who's got those third-man runs that are so good and positional understanding, or at least it used to be, in terms of getting into these positions to generate output, whether that's goal or assist from. And Bernardo Silva's certainly been taking up these pockets. However, without him, it was almost like he would drop a little bit deeper at times. De Bruyne could occupy that whole area, and then Foden, instead of hugging the right touchline, would come inside. And that's what I mean by this hybrid right wing role. He wasn't just a traditional winger. He wasn't doing touchline shifts like Martinelli and Son have been doing recent times, but he was coming inside. And it wasn't Nunes who was actually overlapping. It kind of just left that space and vacated it, which is interesting for a Pep side who's always had his wingers quite wide, make the pitch as big as possible, pass, move the block, and then penetrate the space. And it's opened up. But he didn't do that. And I thought the threat generated as a result was high, and it was really good. So overall, I thought from Manchester City, and from a tactical standpoint and a selection standpoint, it was really good. But like I said earlier, they just felt good. Like, they looked very good. They were sharp. And even mentally, it just seemed like they were there. Talking about mentally, one thing I've noticed is that Phil Foden certainly takes responsibility inside, maybe more than anyone else has been doing in recent times. He always wants the ball. He wants it in dangerous position. He's looking to receive. And then he's forceful. He's intentful when he receives it. And I really like that. He's just very alive in the game, very present. And I think that's a really good sign for himself in terms of being able to generate output, but also Manchester City, just in case someone needs to get them ticking. He's there, and he has been there recently. Well, even against like Leicester, I think there was another game against Villa as well. He was the one looking to make it happen. So that was all good. A quick one on the defense because Ruben Diaz was back, and I thought certainly improved them. That's 10 minutes, little bit shaky transitions were definitely there for Ipswich, but apart from that, I thought they were handled them well, and they handled them well in general, but they also reduced the volume of them, which I think was very impressive. Guardiola's positioning and what he allowed when City had their block pinned and it 5-3-2 was pinned. But also, Edison had a very good game, and I think making sure that you're not conceding stupid corners as a result of like a save or something like that, or balls aren't spilling. In general, that just kills the other team's momentum when they're not getting too many chances. So it was a really, really good City performance and probably their best one, definitely the best one this season, or at least since their slump. One thing I'd like to say about Ipswich, specifically Liam Delap, is, as Pep said, what a brilliant striker. And I expect him to have an absolutely brilliant career. It'll be so interesting to see where he goes next because, honestly, he'll probably improve any side that he goes, whether he went to Man United, whether he went to Arsenal, whether he went to Chelsea, whether he goes to Tottenham Hotspur, wherever he goes, I'm sure he'll improve them. And he's a strong, strong boy. So yeah, lot we learned from there. I thought it was a really interesting game, and it was good to actually watch Manchester City be Manchester City. It's been a long time since we had a dominating performance like that in the league, I would say, to that extent. And yeah, that's my analysis on. At about 38 minutes on the clock, Morgan Rogers found himself on the left-hand side, I would say, for the first time in the game, really. Picked up the ball and he drove really well. And that was his most threatening run within the game, and well, certainly in the first half and within the game as well. Like I said, it was on the left-hand side. He, given his body, is far more threatening on that left-hand side, whether it comes to those big progressive carries or just in general those final actions, which we associated more to him in recent times. And I've spoken about more with him in recent times because they have certainly become refined and he's become better at them, simply now that he's got more experience at this level. Playing him on the right, I think he's certainly less effective. So if you ever wanted to take a bit of a effective ownership gamble and a tactical gamble at the same time, you could bet that Ramsey starts. He starts on the left, Rogers starts on the right, and as such, he isn't as big of a goal threat, even if the fixture is suggestive of Villa scoring and him potentially calling. Hopefully, Ramsey is sacrificed somewhat and he moves to the right-hand side and Rogers moves to the left. But if not, I do think you could see a decline in Morgan Rogers' output, and it's certainly something I would keep an eye out for. And in general, I don't think they're as much of an attacking threat when it's like this. I really like Jacob Ramsey in a footballer. Bit of a shame that they like to play the same position in the side. Or Rogers potentially plays up top more so with Watkins as opposed to right. But I don't think that's going to happen with Kamara, Anana, and Tielemans all playing in the side now. And Tielemans not really being fine. So that is certainly something to consider. Now, Arsenal are a very interesting side to interpret at the moment. I think when, obviously, this was the case in this game, when Partey plays at 6, I really wouldn't be so confident in them keeping, irrespective of the title that they have, that they're the best defense in. Because honestly, when he's there at 6, and he wasn't for this game, we'll come on to game specifically, they are so much weaker on those defensive transitions. Spurs showed that, other sides were showing that, just given Partey's legs, and as such, I'm not so bullish on Arsenal keeping clean sheets. But even when, like, for example, they didn't have that, and the midfield composition with Odegaard, Marino, Rice, they still didn't look overly secure to me. And even when they were 2-0 up, I still had the feeling that Villa were going to get back into the game. Now, Villa have more attacking quality and have these transition weapons that other sides don't have. But nonetheless, the attacking quality of the league is so high that pretty much everyone has someone, and they don't have an easy run coming up. So when it comes to their clean sheets, I would certainly consider that. And when it comes to their goal scoring capability, in terms of their abilities to break those deeper blocks, for example, Aston Villa went really deep against Manchester City. They did the same against Arsenal, and they don't really look particularly threatening or like they're going to create chances. Obviously, they've always been a good side in transition. Maybe less so now, especially without Bukayo Saka, and the fact that Havertz's finishing at the moment isn't probably as lethal as you want from a number 9. Martinelli doesn't look as good of a goal scorer as he did a couple of seasons ago. For all of those reasons, I would just be a little bit wary of betting too heavy on Arsenal. One thing I thought about in the game, and I thought in the first half and in the second half, and then he scored, was Ollie Watkins was really, really, really. I was super impressed with him. The link play that happened at times, not the greatest volume of it you'll ever see, but when it was there, it was good. The movement, the runs, the intelligence, just everything about the performance I really liked. I thought it was a proper, or an old school, proper type of number 9 performance. When I say old school, maybe like 5 years ago, as opposed to the 1900s. But yeah, I thought Ollie Watkins was really good. I certainly deserved his audit. One thing about Gabriel, we spoke about this a little bit earlier, but from that left-hand side with those right in swingers. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And he actually, honestly, I thought should have scored it back for Partey in the first half. Thought he should have shot and it would have gone in that near post. But from the right-hand side, when Odegaard takes them, just not the same quality of delivery, just because he can't kick the ball as hard over that distance attacker. So attacker in this case, Gabriel or Mikel Marino receives, it's not the same. Not got the same pace on it, not getting the same whip on it. So I think that his goal threat definitely decreases. And when Marino's in the side as well, it could be for more games, that takes away from it as well. So those are all things to consider and stuff we learned from Arsenal Aston. You may have noticed the match analysis has become a little bit more FPL specific, and I will do that at times just to ensure that you're getting maximum value out of it. Now, this was really interesting, and this Newcastle performance potentially will be one that allows us to exploit opportunities which others aren't going to go for down the line, because statistically speaking, in terms of goals conceded, Newcastle have been quite good as of late, up till this game. Having Tonali at the base was one thing that Eddie Howe didn't do previously, and there were reasons for that, right? I think everyone could see that Bruno Guimaraes would have been better as an 8, but he didn't have the 6 to allow him to function as an 8 to the best of his ability within the side. Why? Because he didn't have someone with the dueling capacity that Bruno Guimaraes has, right? Or the dueling capacity you would like. And in this type of game, where the opposition is such a transitional threat and the physical profiles they have, that issue really came to light. So in a game against, for example, Manchester City, and I speak about this because a lot of people don't like FODEN's fixture run, it may not be so bad for them. Yes, Newcastle are a good side. They're a very good side. They've been in very good form. And they have a lot of brilliant players. And Tonali's a good player, but this isn't his position. And honestly, I think that sides can hurt Newcastle in this. If they're brave enough to engage in a game like this, like Bournemouth did, where they were like, okay, we know how good you are in transition playing, we know the type of players you have, we know the physical profiles you have, but we're going to press you high and we're going to play our game anyway. If they're willing to do that, if other sides are willing to do that, then you can hurt Newcastle and you can certainly score goals against them. It's almost like you maybe have to take a punch for punch approach against them and see where you end up. Alternatively, you could always block really low, and then you would just, if you block really low, you would need serious transition weapons to hurt them. But it's doable. I thought Hall again showed that 1v1 he can certainly be gotten at. Has had a very good season, is a very good player, but just something to note. Livramento, on the other hand, one is absolutely exceptional. Moving on to Bournemouth, I mean, the menu had a really good game. I thought Atara was a big threat, and obviously Clive popping up with a hat trick and an assist. The ball striking that he possesses, quite impressive, I must say. And honestly, going forward, I wouldn't be surprised if he emerges as a better option in comparison to Semenyo from 25, because he seems to have a bit more goal threat against. But just in general, I think Semenyo's goal threat is slightly more limited to those bigger games. If you look at his hauls, he's hauled against pretty much all of the bigger teams, simply because I don't think his finishing is as good as you would like it to be. And against those deeper blocks, the type of finishing you have is slightly different to the type of finishing you have in a game like this, for example, where he didn't really have a chance, or a game against Manchester City or Chelsea. So that's something to consider. More shots which are slightly more reliant on ball striking as opposed to manufacturing a little bit of space, separation, and then smashing the ball in from there. And that brings me on to my next point, which are that Bournemouth are probably better against sides which engage in a game model that allows them to be a little bit more threatening in transition, as opposed to those sides who sit really deep. Like West Ham sat quite deep against them. They didn't create too much when they came to the vitality. And as such, I think viewing their fixtures significantly differently to what the FDR shows would certainly help you, just give the profile of players that they have and the way they play to an extent. A few notes on West Ham, Palace, and Chelsea Wolves. I imagine many of you will have watched the game tonight. But starting with West Ham Palace, I thought Mateta was monstrous, and it was a real striker's performance where he imposed that level of physicality on the defense. I thought he looked monstrous, like I said, and it was a really, really good and threatening performance. That's the type of threat I talk about when it comes to FPL assets, and the type of threat that I like to have. And maybe not moving to him and keeping Jackson has turned out to be a mistake. And to be honest, with the point swing being 6, 11, 17 points over the last 2 weeks, irrespective of what happens down the line, it seems as if I potentially made a mistake there. But, that's all good. It happens. I thought West Ham lacked threat up top completely on the opposite side to what Palace did. Understandable given the injuries they have, but something to know. I also thought Potter's game model was quite slow. But even though it was quite slow, I didn't think they were back with the pivot they had in the field. And Palace was still able to hurt them in the middle, right? Palace were just the front three especially, I just thought had a very good game, particularly Mateta, and the threat generated from the middle and those three higher than you probably would have wanted if you were a West Ham fan. A little bit lethargic for my liking. So yeah, Palace looked good. They certainly looked like they were going to concede some chances, and I think a side with more attacking talent and a side who took a more aggressive approach can hurt them. But in games like this, they should be okay, and it's why I'm struggling to interpret the Brentford game to an extent. But more so than that, I'm quite aware that some of it's just going to come down to luck. Get returns from Brentford, not against Palace. Moving on to Chelsea versus Wolves, you again saw Cucurella in this left eight with a diamond in midfield. We've spoke about this so many times. Not good for Palmer because he tends to stray to the left-hand side more. And I think the type of actions he's completing in the game, probably not ones which are more likely to get output from at the top of the diamond. Whereas on the right-hand side, I think a little bit freer in nature, a little bit more his game, the type of actions that he's allowing him to go and return those big balls. And if you look at the disparity between returns at the top of the diamond and returns as a right-sided 8/10 when we have a box midfield, I'm sure it'll be chalk and cheese. And it shows how important Romeo Lavia is, right? For example, one of the reasons I captained Palmer last week or the week before was because Lavia was back and had a feeling we're going to go back to the box midfield against Bournemouth, right? That's it. Because Lavia was back, and when he's back, I think Enzo Moreira is happy to invert Caicedo into the pivot, and he doesn't need a fullback going into midfield, and we can play Enzo Palmer, right? But without that, I think his output might be down a little. And you know what? If someone told me that Lavia was out for a while and this diamond was going to persist, I'd just open myself up to the idea of selling Cole Palmer just a little bit, ever so slightly. That's not to say I would, but like I would at least entertain it. Whereas if I knew he was playing right side 10, I pretty much never. Wolves with this system, they had the same issue as West Ham. When you play this system, you really need a pivot that it has at least one space, a brilliant physical profile. And they don't really have that with Lamina being out. So I think the pressure, or at least the chances you're able to create against them, can create at a decent volume, and also some quite threatening ones given their centre-back profiles and their physical profiles as well, are not the most imposing. And I think they really need to sign a few better athletes in this window if they want to ensure that they're not in a real relegation trap. Apart from that, I thought it was actually quite a boring game. There's other things to talk about, but not overly relevant for FPL. We'll come on to Jackson, other important assets within the transfer plan section. But for now, that is about it on Chelsea versus. Now, I think transfers need to be looked at slightly differently, because to have one extra free transfer from the point of having 2 to 3 and 3 to 4, in my opinion, is not the same thing. Because the number of realistic combinations that you open yourself up to exponentially increases when you go from 2 to 3 and then 3 to 4, right? And as such, having 4 free transfers now allows me to have so many routes which are all healthy and have their own positives associated with them, which is why it becomes a harder decision, because you just have so much on offer to you, right? This is one of the reasons I was adamant of getting to 4, because that's where I felt like for my team specifically, all of the routes really opened up and I could really profit. Now, you will see that there are 6 potential outgoings listed, which is over 50% of your starting 11. Guardiola, Jackson, Foden, João Pedro, Gabriel, Hall. Now, I say Gordon in 24 because obviously Gordon may very well be going after this Southampton away fixture. Why? Because he would facilitate Brian Mbeumo in that case if he's not already bought. And the potential incomings are Trent, Wissa, Gakpo, Mbeumo, Van Dijk, and Konate. Now, of these, 2 ones that are almost nailed on to leave are Gvardiol and Jackson. Keeping a clean sheet at home to Chelsea probably won't be the easiest thing. They've then got Arsenal away, won't be the easiest thing. They've then got Liverpool and Newcastle and Spurs. So from a defensive standpoint, I don't particularly like it. And I think that he has to go, especially when he's the blocker to Trent, right? He's the real blocker to Trent. Obviously, Gabriel's more expensive, but with a realistic hat on myself. Jackson, like I said, I just had enough. And it's not even just the fact that I've had enough, but the prospects that he's got coming up, even though the fixtures are good, I don't think his ceiling is high. And I've always said that I would like high ceiling assets in my team, in every position. Right? It's just how I think the game should be played, and I'm not budging on that. Like they say in actual football, you really shouldn't budge on your idea. Iterate, sure, but the actual philosophy of it, no. So he's going, and one of Johan Wissa or Gahodi Gakpo should be coming in. Now, I won't be bringing in Mateta, and after the performance I saw against West Ham, the fixture run I see coming up now, and how I interpret it now, I would like to have him, but In this particular situation, that's probably not going to be the case. I mean, I can get him, and it would just mean I forego Gakpo. But it would also mean that I'm pretty sure that I would forego Van Dijk as well. So as you'll see in the next slide, there are so many routes. None of them involve Mateta, albeit they certainly could. Slightly difficult this week, but possible. Okay, now obviously we've got our other assets like Brian Mbeumo, Van Dijk, and Kanate, and I'm going to show you all the options on the other slides. But if you are in a somewhat similar position, you have to ask yourself all of these questions with the number of routes. Should you be selling Phil Foden? Yes or no? We're going to talk about all of this in the next. You invest in Brentford because I think 25, 26, and 27, no, 24, 25, 26, the fixtures are really good and there's a lot of attacking upside there. Do you potentially go 1 week early and try and cash in on what they could do at Palace? Maybe, maybe not. Or maybe you just don't invest at all for whatever reason. Then that third Liverpool slot, if we just assume Trent, lock, go Van Dijk or Kanate? Do you go for the security of minutes? Van Dijk, not Van Dijk. Kanate said today in a press conference that he's constantly playing with painkillers because he's still not right. He rushed back from injury after Joe Gomez got injured. So as a result of that, what if he misses? But the slot clearly doesn't favour quantity. Doesn't have anyone else to play that really. He could play Gravenberch, but he's not going to. Doubt it. Does Kanate just keep playing? And if he does, he might actually might be worth saving the money over Van Dijk. And he would unlock so much more elsewhere. In which case he becomes super helpful. Now, with Diogo Jota out, there's less competition, and Luis Diaz really hasn't been. Gakpo's minutes probably get even better, and he's looked sharp, right? And then the question becomes, do you even get triple Liverpool for Game Week 23, or do you wait until double Game Week 24, where you have some more clarity, right? And you forego that Ipswich fixture for the third. You're back against Arsenal by selling Gabriel, especially a Saliba-less Arsenal. You risk losing João Pedro, obviously a wonderful facilitator at the price, or blocks Wissa, Mateta, Gakpo. And then you commit early with a lot of free transfers in 23 or 24. So those are questions I all think you have to answer for you. And in the next slide, when I show you all my potential options, you're going to essentially have those questions answered for you. You'll see my perspective and things from there. As you can see, there are 5 options here, and none of them even involve the sale of Sanchez, which is what I was originally intending on doing. When I say the original plan there, I guess the most recent one without Sanchez, and that is option 3, to make 4 free transfers, to sell Philip Foden and get in Trent and Van Dijk, get the Liverpool double up, and then also commit to the Brentford double up in Mbeumo and Wissa. Now, Spurs at home, West Ham away, Leicester away, with 24 to 26. I really fancy them to get some points. And you know what? Just watching Brentford, it's always these two involved. So I think getting them, the floor is really high. So there's not too much risk attached. It's just whether they access that ceiling. And you know what? They're both very good in the bonus point. And if they hit, they usually hit big. So there's definitely the upside there. It's just the fact that it's a double up, and it's, do you ever just choose one and then try and get a little lucky that they significantly outperform the other? Because if you do, you are genuinely laughing. Absolutely fantastic vision. Albeit, I think it's very difficult at the moment to do. And again, if you do, someone lucky. Game against Liverpool, Mbeumo definitely look more threatening, but Wissa's donor occupation, type of play he is, and the XGI he accumulates means that I think that he's getting points at some point. And not only that, he's cheap. He's the facilitator. I think if they were both the same price, it's not really a competition, considering the position as well. So much cheaper than at 1.6. Anyway, moving on to the options. You will see 2 constants, and that is Gvardiol and Jackson are gone. They are absolutely gone. And one other constant is that Trent comes in. Trent has to come in for me, right? There's no point in me not having another Liverpool asset for this game week when it's so easily accessible. So Trent comes in for Gvardiol. That's one of the 4 free transfers done. Now, it's a question of, firstly, do I want to commit now or in game week 24? I could just go Jackson to Wissa, except the more upside I have from Wissa away at Palace compared to Jackson away at City, I'm not sure that's entirely true, but just assume it is for now. And then I would again have 3 free transfers in 25. I can choose where to go with my Liverpool tree. And because I'll have 1 more free transfer as opposed to when I was meant to commit, it means that I could still restructure and go and take out Foden. I could take out Wissa to get Gakpo, to get some funds out, and then also go and improve elsewhere, right? So that's helpful. And that's why I wouldn't say I'm leaning there, but it's certainly quite attractive, right? It would also mean that I keep Foden, considering the form he's been in, and I proceed from there. It's just not having Brian Mbeumo this week is slightly unsettling. I also feel like if Liverpool are at home to Ipswich, I just really would like a triple. All right, moving on to the next one. is the same set of moves, but like I said, if I just feel that unsettled by not having Brian and Bremer, if I would like to increase the upside of my team because I have Sanchez and I don't care about that too much, I would sell Foden for Mbeumo as well. That's probably the option I'm least likely to number 2. I think if I'm not to go all the way, then there's no real reason for me to go Foden to Mbeumo. I'll just spread the risk a little bit and also maintain the upside of Foden's form. Option 3, like I said, is the original plan, and that is committing. That is really committing to double Liverpool. Well, not entirely. I could always reverse it and sell Van Dijk and get Gakpo, but I don't think I'll do that. I think it's largely inefficient transfers. And just because there's a double now, well, okay, what if Spurs double in 25? Are we to give zero thought to that? No, that should be in the back of our mind because you're really going to need transfers for that then. And Postecoglou is so attractive with the assist. So we need to make sure that you have funds out of the team. And then you'll have to restructure for Plan Gaming 29 and so on and so on. If you don't want to use it there, it's not really optimal. So that's really me committing, and I'm not in love with that. The other two are me committing slightly less. And the reason I say that with number 5 is even though I'm making full threes, I feel like the security, not secure. Okay, I feel like the upside that you get from Gakpo in 23 is really nice given the increase in security of expected minutes. It also gives me the Mbeumo Wissa double up, which I just really like at the moment. I think they will score past Palace, and I think the floor again as a pair is quite high. And I don't mind them doing just okay for that week, knowing the upside I have in the next 3. Like it's a very secure source of points, whereas but it maybe so much at the moment, albeit when he's in this form, you don't sell him. And then I also get Trent, right? And then option 4, this I think is my preferred one at the moment. It's not a full commit because I leave 2 free transfers for next week. It's just Trent in, Gakpo in, get my triple Liverpool up, and also have Brian and Mbeumo. I'll have cash spare, and then Yohan Wissa, whose fixture run I think really starts from 24. Then I can bring him in. So which of these options I go for, I don't know at the moment. I will also make my transfers very late, given the weather warnings. But I just thought I'd show you where my process is at and what the potential options are. Of course, if you have a better solution, I currently have 4 frees and 0.1 in the bank. By all means, I would love, please do drop it in the comments. Tell me which option you would go for 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. I think I had to make a decision right now. I go option 4. If I absolutely had to make a decision right now, I go option 4. You may be surprised at that because I've talked up double Liverpool defense quite a bit. But I think maybe with Everton coming to form a little bit and Bournemouth away being so tough for clean sheets, and then just how Liverpool are on a little bit of a decline defensively, I would say at the moment. Brentford could have definitely scored past them. The left back situation, Kanate's fitness, the upside to the fixture in 23 for Gakpo, I think I potentially go there. Obviously, a lot of this rests on selling Phil Foden. I think he could do very well the upcoming fixtures. It's just whether Mbeumo can match him or even outscore him, which for large parts of the season certainly had. So yeah, tell me what you think is better with Mbeumo or Foden, and likewise, which option you would go for. And that is all she wrote for this one, ladies and gentlemen. I do hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. I thought it was one of the more interesting, if not the most interesting, transfer plans we have had yet. If you are interested in joining the community or even just supporting myself, they do goes around, comes around, then consider joining our membership. I would love to have you in our community, especially if you've been a loyal viewer or even a viewer for a while, been supportive in any, or if you just like some help. 350 likes on the video is the target. 7,000 subscribers is the target for the subscriber count. And I shall see you very soon for everything you need to know. Have a wonderful day ahead. Goodbye.